Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
We are a little crazed. How are you today, Lake?
I am doing okay. Christy got stuck on Disney travel agent purgatory. I think it's the best way to call it.
Yeah, just before this call, it was not my favorite. I go to Europe Friday night, River Cruise Conference. I can't wait to tell people about it, which I will be telling you guys about it on the podcast because I'm very excited.
Yes, I am excited for Christy. I'm excited to see all of the cool things she does. But Turning towards Disney Cruise Line, we have a very exciting show and something a little bit different, a little spin on the back-to-back sailing here, because we did two different ships with a sort of back-to-back tie-in here. With that, we would like to welcome Bethany to the show. Bethany, how are you today?
Good. How are you guys?
We are doing pretty good. We are very excited to have you on this show. Why don't you go ahead and start by giving our guests a little bit of your Disney and Disney cruising background?
Yeah, this was, as we'll find out, my third and fourth Disney cruise. I first sailed for the first time back in May of 2022 on the Fantasy, and I ended up booking, I like to call it back-to-back-ish sailings, where I was on the Fantasy and the Wish. I did 7-night Western Caribbean on the Fantasy with Pixar Day at Sea, and then I did a 4-night sailing, Bahama sailing on the Wish. But usually I covered Disney World food, so it's exciting to be on Disney Cruise Line and get something a little bit different.
For our guests, why don't you tell them a little bit about how you cover these Disney World food events?
Yeah, I have a platform on Bethany Vinton everywhere. I essentially just cover Disney food and drink. It's my favorite thing. I head down there, cover festivals and dine. I'm in the middle of dining at every restaurant at Disney World and reviewing it. So usually I'm in Disney World. Usually you can find me in the parks, but I do love Disney Cruise Line. It's so relaxing and it's such a different, unique take on food that's so different than Disney parks. So usually I'm in the parks, but I love Disney Cruise Line.
And we'll put her Instagram handle in the show notes, but it's Bethany Vinton. Check it out. Check out our website. It's actually, there's great content both on the website and on her Instagram handle. Just a wealth of food knowledge and like real honest knowledge, which I always like this is not worth it. This is horrible. Things like that.
Turning towards getting ready to sail, did we do any pre-stay, post-stay? And I do believe we have a couple days in between the sailings that we also had to do some staying.
We did. The Fantasy takes off Saturday. So I live out in Portland, Oregon. So I took a red eye on Thursday night, got into the parks early, did the first day did a full day of and festival, stayed at Coronado Springs, and then took Disney transportation to the Fantasy the next day. And then in between the two cruises, because the way this worked was I got off the Fantasy on a Saturday and I got on the Wish on a Monday. So I did 2 nights at All Star Sports. After the cruise, we had a late flight out, but we did a day in Animal Kingdom as well. So a lot in between the Disney cruise. There was a lot of park happening.
I'm a little tired just hearing your schedule, but let's talk about getting to the port. So you had indicated that you took Disney transportation. How was that? Because we don't talk about that very often. And did you receive luggage tags before you left home?
Yes.
Okay. Because that seems, just for all the listeners, that seems to be like a 50-50, 70-30 situation, whether luggage tags go out. I only receive luggage tags about a third of my cruises typically. And I've tried calling Disney to ask where they are. And they're just like, oh, well, we told the post office to send them. And that's where it ends. Like no further discussion is ever said. But if you don't get your luggage tags, you can get them at the hotel at Bell Services. In your case, did the hotel tell you how to get your transfer and when that would occur?
They did. I got an email about 2 days beforehand that was just a brief summary of what time we were meeting, what time to have your luggage ready, and where we were meeting. Super easy. It was nice because, especially with the luggage tags, I just put everything by the door. I don't have to worry about it until it gets to the port, which is, I think, my favorite thing about the Disney transfer is I don't want to lug my bags anywhere. So I like that that's done for me. But it was really informative. I had previously on another trip taken Disney Transport and they left a note on your like under your door. And this time it was straight up an email for both cruises. It came a few days beforehand and really just broke down everything that you needed to know. So there was no question. But if you had questions, it said to go to Bell Services.
And that's where you could go if you don't get it. So if listeners don't get their information, just go to Bell Services. They'll have it for you and they'll make you luggage tags if you need them as well. So do they literally open up your door and grab your luggage from in there?
Yes. So they say they'll like start grabbing your luggage at 7 a.m. I would say by 7:45, they hadn't grabbed our luggage. We just called down to the front desk just to make sure we were on the list because we were going to leave the room. And so we left, went and got breakfast. And then when we went to the meetup area, they confirmed how many bags we had in the room. So they were like 4 bags. So they had gone in and picked them up when we were in there. So all of that was taken care of because I was like the worry one that I was like, maybe I go back up to the room just to check. But when they said, oh, you have 4 bags, I was like, we'd have 4 bags. So that's perfect.
Oh, that's great. And then what time did your transportation pick you up?
We met in the lobby at 8:30 and transportation picked us up at 9.
Okay. So the normal time-ish.
Yeah.
Moving towards your first sailing, 7-night on the Fantasy.
You know what we haven't talked about, Lake, is the type of sailing it was on the Fantasy, because this was not that a 7-night on a Fantasy is a just, but this was not just a regular Western or Eastern. This was a Pixar Day at Sea sailing.
It was.
So Pixar Day at Sea is obviously a themed cruise that's occurring like January through the beginning of March right now on the Fantasy. What did you book? And I guess we were about to jump to getting on the ship, but I actually want to know, because it's a Pixar Day, what did you book before the cruise?
Yeah. So there were specific things that I could book for Pixar Day at Sea 30 days out. So like that your castaway status did not matter for that. Everything opened 30 days out. And I booked the Hey Howdy breakfast, which is their specialty breakfast. It happens twice on this cruise. It happened both sea days for us. And then that I reserved that night. And I also reserved, they had 2 meet and greets. They had a Rex from Toy Story meet and greet, and they had an Incredibles meet and greet, which were also available for booking. I booked both of those at midnight, 30 days out. And I will say the Hey Howdy breakfast sold out pretty quickly. I would say within 15 minutes. And then Rex was the next thing that sold out. And the Incredibles, you could book that up until we got on the sailing. Like that never sold out for our sailing.
Oh, poor Incredibles.
I think they had more times because there's 4 of them.
Oh, okay.
So you had your choice of or it wasn't a choice. You went there and it was either Mr. or Mrs. Incredible, Edna Mode, or Frozen. So there was more of them to go around.
So we're going to circle back around to this Pixar Day at Sea here real soon. But what kind of room did you book on this sailing?
For this sailing, we actually did a guaranteed veranda. So with that, did not know our exact room number. It saved us a couple $100s in doing back-to-back sailings. I was like, we're going to cut corners where we can because I want to focus my money on like things on the ship. So we did a guaranteed veranda. It was the normal veranda, not the family veranda. We got about 2 weeks out assigned our stateroom, and our luggage tag still made it in time, which didn't ship until after we got assigned our veranda. So it was me and my mother on this cruise. Perfect size for the 2 of us. And especially on a longer cruise, I do like the veranda.
And what kind of stateroom was the stateroom located that they assigned you?
We ended up on the 7th deck forward, which I had never sailed in that. I'd always been on decks 10 and 11, and I actually really did enjoy it. It was kind of very conveniently located between if I wanted to go downstairs to do something or go upstairs to the pool deck to do something. I kind of liked that balance, that it was easy to grab the stairs either way, which is not always the case when you're kind of higher or lower.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of deck 7 and 8 myself.
Let's go ahead and get into this. Let's turn it back to Pixar Day at Sea and talk about kind of everything we did, the activities available, and what your thoughts on them were.
Yeah, I did not intentionally book like Pixar Day at Sea. It wasn't something that I had saw and was like, oh my gosh, I got to book Pixar Day at Sea. It happened to work. I actually booked the Wish Cruise before this. This was an add-on. So that just happened to be a happy bonus. Overall, there were 2 days that we definitely had more Pixar things. However, there were characters throughout the entire week that were Pixar themed. So like Merida was available all week long, which is not common. And I love her. So that was wonderful. But as far as Pixar Day goes, the first day at sea was not Pixar Day at Sea. However, there were Pixar Day at Sea activities. that is when I did my Hey Howdy breakfast, which is an animator's palette. And then Bullseye, Jesse, and Woody are there. And it's kind of like, I like to call it the hoop-de-doo at sea because it's like singing and dancing. They have a specialty menu just for that breakfast. It happened twice on our cruise. We got to do that on day 2. So that was a kind of nice way to really kick it off into Pixar Day at Sea. And there's so many activities on the actual day that I was actually happy we had it not on the official Pixar Day at Sea because it gave us room on the actual day to do other things.
What did you think of the Hey Howdy Hey breakfast? Because character dining on Disney Cruise Line used to be something you could regularly do, and now it's a little bit of a rarity.
I loved it. I wish they would bring this to every cruise ship because it was not necessarily Hey Howdy, but just bring character dining. This was so much fun. They came around to your table. I had the greatest interaction with Bullseye, which I had never seen Bullseye before. And he was the most adorable thing ever. He tried to sit at the table, eat the pancakes. He was trying to do everything. But I really wish they would bring this because this was so much fun. And it was such a different thing that I've experienced. You know, of course, there's other places like Frozen, Arendelle on The Wish, where it's kind of like character dining-esque. It's like a dinner show. This was definitely more like interaction with characters. They came down and actually took time with every single table. My only thing that I wish is it had been more than 2 days because it sold out so quickly that I don't think everybody got to experience it. And obviously we did, but if you weren't on that midnight, it was not easy to get a table there. But I wish this would become a thing because animator palettes there. So why don't we do character dining?
Well, we did. Any cruise that was over 6 nights long, I believe, it may have even been 5, but I think it was 6, had character dining. So it was included in your cruise fare. You registered for it during your like pre-cruise registration.
What other activities did we partake in for Pixar Day at Sea?
There were actually a lot of activities throughout Pixar Day at Sea. This happened on our second to last day. It was the final sea day that we had. And started off, we actually went up. That was the same day that we had churro waffles. So that is where breakfast started. Because, you know, you have to start the morning with churro waffles.
But did your head waiter tell you about the churro waffles ahead of time?
Yes, we were told about them the night before.
Okay, that's my tip for people. If you want to know when the churro waffles are coming out, ask your head waiter at your evening dinner.
Yeah, she told us the night before. So started the morning there. And then there were just plenty of Pixar activities throughout the day. We actually there was like a wilderness explorer type hunt around the ship. Essentially, you went down to the Port Adventures desk, collected this little compass thing where you then went around the deck and had to collect and figure out a word that it spelled out. So you were going through all the decks. It gave you a clue to where they were. And then at the end of the day, they actually had a wilderness explorer ceremony with Doug and Russell. So you got to go and officially become wilderness explorers. So that was a cute activity that we did that morning. There were character meet and greets all day long of like really cool characters. You had Remy. You had Rex was the obviously pre-planned meet and greet, which was really, really cool. I walked in and I was like, he is the coolest thing I've ever seen. His tail is huge. And then there were definitely other activities for kids. There were pool parties all day long. And then that was when we also met the Incredibles as well, which was wonderful. And then the night concluded with a deck party, which was the Pixar Day at Sea deck party, which was the Pixar Pals and was an amazing show. Every character from that day was pretty much at the deck party. So you had like Joy and Sadness, you had Remy, you had Party Source Rex. He came out and was pumping and having a great time. It was just all over. There was so much to do that there was no way I could possibly have done all of the Pixar Day at Sea things, but it was well balanced that I didn't feel like I was really missing out on a lot. But if you wanted to hit a lot of characters, you could have, which is just the thing that I didn't do as much. But there were tons of activities to do. And they kept throughout the day. There was little announcements from different characters that were like cute little greetings that you'd be walking the hallways and they tell a joke or something funny. So just little touches of Pixar everywhere.
I love that. Overall, did you think Pixar Day at Sea was worth it then? I know you didn't specifically book it for that reason, but is it something that you would consider doing again because of how good it sounds like it was?
It was fun. I will say I'm not the biggest like Pixar knowledge person. I had to do a Pixar fest beforehand to watch some movies, but I loved it enough that I would look into their other sailings like Marvel Day at Sea. I think I would thrive at Marvel Day at Sea. So it did entice me to want to book ones that do have specific days, because I thought they did a really good job with it. And if I were a big, huge Pixar fan, I would have absolutely loved it. The amount of characters you get to see that you don't see anywhere, I would have been pure bliss. I mean, I'm just not the biggest Pixar fan. Like, I haven't seen everything, but I would definitely book a specialty cruise.
Very cool. While we're talking about activities we did on the ship, what else do you typically find yourself doing, say, on a sea day aboard the Fantasy?
Ooh, that's a great question. I will book tastings. That is any type of adult situation is typically my favorite thing. So tastings are a big one. I did the World of Old Fashions, which was a great tasting. That was on a sea day, I believe, and nice little full 4 glasses of old fashions that night.
Wow.
I mean, it was definitely expensive. It was a more expensive tasting. I believe it was $100. So compared to a lot of other tastings there, it was definitely a pricey one. But I am the person that I'm either at the pool or pretty much at a tasting. Those are my 2 things, or eating something around the ship, because that's my other thing that I like to do is try all the different foods.
Do you purchase food from the ice cream shop? Do you go in there and get a sundae or any of the treats that they sell in there?
I don't. I'm not really a sweets person. So that's kind of like my skip. And then on this cruise, I actually did the dessert experience at Remy. But I mean, that was my splurge of I was going to spend a lot of money doing that. So I was budgeting myself appropriately, but that was worth it, even though I'm not a dessert person. So,
well, why don't we go ahead and bring it into food before we go into specialty dining, which we have quite a bit to talk about. What were your thoughts on the main dining rooms? What was kind of your highlight main dining room and highlight meal or meals?
My highlight for me, this was my second time on the Fantasy, was actually Enchanted Garden. I had never been there last time because I had done adult dining every single night. And we actually had 3 nights there because for Pixar Day at Sea, we actually had a special Pixar dinner. So they bring you to one of the rotational dining restaurants. You have a specialty menu. It was really cute because all of the menu items there were some play on Pixar, which isn't typical on the menu. You know, you just kind of have like your standard fare. So I thought it was a really cute experience. They had a really cute Pixar ball dome cake at the end of it, that if dome cakes are your thing, you'd like it. But I did like that specialty meal, but I was actually happy we ended up in Enchanted Garden again because I loved it. I thought it was the best food that I had in any rotational dining. They had a vegetable lasagna that I thought was absolutely outstanding. I love the atmosphere in there. I was so bummed when I went there that I never was on it in my last, or never had dined there in my last cruise, because that was so wonderful.
Enchanted Garden is probably my favorite restaurant on both the Dream and the Fantasy as well. We've just continually had really great dining experiences there. And I think the menu there is really great. Like, we've eaten the whole menu there and thought everything was fantastic.
Can you think of what my favorite menu item is, like, from Enchanted Garden? It's only available on longer cruises.
Chicken schnitzel.
And it's very specific to the Dream and the Fantasy chicken schnitzel because it is not the same on the Wish. But yep, that is my favorite meal. Well done, Lake. I'm impressed.
Who pays attention?
Why don't we move into specialty dining here? Because we've got some really cool experiences and something new to talk about. We've never well, it's new to Disney Cruise Line. And this is the first time that we're getting to hear someone experience it. And we are excited because Christy and I have also gone and booked this experience for our future sailing after your recommendation.
I'm excited for you guys because you're going to love it. We're, of course, we're talking Prima Notte at Palo. This is on night 1. Do you guys know if it's on every cruise? I don't know if it's on the Magic or the Wonder. I can confirm that it's on the Dream and the Wish as well.
Future Lake here. Prima Notte is being offered on all 5 ships.
It is Prima Notte at Palo. It is a night 1 experience. It happens, there's 2 times, I believe 6:30 and 8:45. And essentially it's a wine and food pairing, but they're pretty decent portions of food for what it is. You actually get 5 glasses of wine and 4, I would say, pretty hefty bites. Your meal starts with, or your meal, we'll call it a meal, starts with champagne when you get there.
Is it like you've taken over the restaurant, or is it?
Yes, you're the only people from Prima Notte are in there.
So then they sort of make announcements, if you will,
Yes.
to people. They talk to the whole restaurant at the same time.
Correct. So it's actually hosted by the sommelier. He comes out and intros everything that you get. The chef came out at the beginning and did give us like a little talk and rundown of what we were going to expect on the menu. And then the sommelier walks you through everything. So he'll walk you through the dish that comes out as well as the wine pairing and why he paired it with what, they did. We had Fernando on the Fantasy and he was lovely as our sommelier. It's 5 different wines and 4 different bites. Again, super good. There was a seared tuna. There was a wagyu. Overall, I really, really liked it. It wasn't the longest experience. I would say it wrapped up within an hour and a half. So you're going through their hefty portions of wine in that short amount of time. So, you're feeling good when you leave, but we immediately left and went to dinner because the way you can plan it is that you can plan it around your actual rotational dining time. But overall, to me, for the price point, this was $85 a person, was the best deal we did on Disney Cruise Line. Both cruises. I just thought for the pours of wine and the food that goes along with it, this to me is like a must do every time I'm on Disney Cruise Line. And the first night we were there, we actually didn't miss anything in the Walt Disney Theater either. It was a movie. So I didn't feel bad, not because it would have taken up our time there. So I didn't feel bad missing that. But this to me was book this now because this is a don't miss experience. I hope they continue to do this.
I wonder if they automatically then set your time, because when I went to register for our cruise, it only offered me the 8:30 or the 8, whatever the time was. And we have first dining because I'm like a child and have to eat like children. And yeah, so it was only offered for that. So maybe they do it automatically, make the time available, or did you have both options?
I only had the 6:45, so I would assume they might actually do that. Yeah.
They want you to go to dinner. It seems.
Which you need to, because while they're hefty bites, you can definitely still eat after it. You're not like, it's not, in my experience, Remy, where you're just stuffed when you're leaving and you're like, I don't want to look at food. You're like, I could do this now. One dish was a gnocchi and it was a single gnocchi. So they were talking about whatever the singular version of that is, but they're not the biggest bites, but it's still a pretty decent amount of food.
And then you also went to Palo during this cruise, correct?
I did dinner for Palo on this cruise.
And what did you guys think of that?
I love Palo dinner. I do love brunch because I love the idea of ordering as much as you want. But at the same time, I like to pace myself. And I like doing Palo dinner on Pirate Night because I'm not the biggest fan of the main dining room Pirate Night menu. So I did specifically stalk my Facebook group to see when our Pirate Night was going to be so I could plan Palo that night. So we did Palo dinner. We did the a la carte menu and just ordered random things instead of the prefix menu, which I think works better I was with my mother, for me and her. We actually spent less money than we would have if we had both done the prefix version. And we kind of just got a lot. I love the angelotti there. That's one of my favorite things. And we did a bunch of pasta dishes, a pizza, and the scallops. Everything was wonderful. The service was great. I love Palo so much. I feel like they really want you to love your food there. They want you to really love and enjoy your experience. And that's what I really love about that meal. I think it just brings me more joy than Remy does. I still love Remy, but it brings me more joy to go to Palo because I feel like they really just want you to absolutely love your experience there. And it's very family-like.
And then you also went to Remy and you did the dessert experience. But was that all you did at Remy on this cruise?
We also did dinner at Remy on this cruise as well. Again, I'm a foodie, so yes, I have to do all the things.
We're not judging. We're happy. Now we get the reports.
Exactly. We did Remy dinner, which was wonderful. I do love Remy because they have the French and the American menu. And so we did prefix and we both got to order the one that we wanted. So one of us ordered the French menu, one of us ordered the American menu, and we kind of switched. I also did the champagne pairing there, which was outstanding. I was like, it's very expensive. I think it's $160. And I was like, I will take the champagne pairing, but overall, absolutely phenomenal. That experience was great. I did like dinner there, but the dessert experience was 10 out of 10. Such a great thing. It happens midday. I did do this during Pixar Day at Sea, so I did miss out on a few things, but it was worth it for that because it's 6 different desserts that they pace a little over an hour. And we did the wine pairing with it. They have this citron dessert that is one of the best things I've ever had. It takes days for them to do it. It looks like a lemon. It's filled with this mousse and this lemon curd. absolutely fabulous. I booked it just to try that, and it was worth every penny. I was like, no notes. The chef came out and introduced, the pastry chef came out and introduced every course, and I was like, that's some of your best work. So again, loved Remy. It's definitely expensive, and I feel like Remy is a very good experience of like, we want you to appreciate your food. Like the food is going to be good, but we want you to appreciate it. And it's just like a different vibe than Palo, where it's like, we want you to love your food.
Why don't we turn this towards entertainment? Did we go and see any of the shows on board the Fantasy? And if so, what were your thoughts?
I did. We went and we saw Aladdin as well as Frozen. I was very excited to see Aladdin because last time our adult dining kind of cut into it and I had to leave right before It's a Whole New World. And I was like, well, that's just the climactic part of the whole thing that I have to walk out. I thought it was absolutely amazing. I love that Disney does these Broadway style shows. Frozen for me has always been a favorite. I have seen Frozen on Broadway. I've seen it toured, and I think the version on the ship is just as good as any of those versions. So we are avid people that we show up, 25 to 30 minutes early to grab our seats that we like and watch the shows every night. So we just watched those two. We did skip, I believe it's Believe on this ship. We did skip it. We saw it last time and I really just wanted to go take some content. So it kind of lost the priority there, but the shows were outstanding. The cast was absolutely wonderful, whether it be there or on the deck shows, because we had 3 deck shows on this cruise. Absolutely phenomenal.
And then before we go on to your port, did you do any other drink tasting? So I know that you said we talked about the world of old fashioned, but did you do any other ones?
Yes, I did the stem to stern tasting as well, which was the day after Prima Notte with Fernando again. That was the sommelier from Palo. And my mom is not a big wine drinker, but I like to put her in tastings because I think it gives her a preview of things. And if she doesn't like it, I can just finish the wine. So it's not a big deal. She actually did really enjoy a lot of things. He had said to her the night before, we had said, oh, we're going to be in your wine tasting tomorrow. And he was like, I have some things I think you'll like. And I liked that it walked through 3 white wines and then 3 red wines. So it really gave a variety and had her trying things that she really did like. But overall, I really did enjoy those tastings. And I think, especially when you get the sommelier in there to do your tastings, you learn so much that you don't normally learn. I would highly recommend them. I love the world of old fashioned as well. So I ended up doing that on both cruises, like my back to back. I was like, I'll do it again. For science, I have to see if they're the same or different.
Well, when we get to the Wish, you can tell us if they're the same or different. So now everybody can have something to look forward to in that area.
So the sailing did have one interesting stop as well. We had a stop in Jamaica. What did we do there?
We actually did river tubing. This was a excursion that I booked through Disney. And my mother, who is almost 70, also went on this excursion and absolutely loved it. She is a fan of lazy rivers. So I figured I could kind of get her on this slow river tubing experience. It was about a 20-minute ride from the port. Super easy. I do love Disney excursions. You go, we met in the Walt Disney Theater. They escort you right out to it. And we took about a 20-minute bus ride to there where we spent about an hour on the river floating. We had a guide. They tied us all together. There were just 10 inner tubes tied together. It is the time of year where the water's kind of low. So at times they were like, okay, lift your bottoms up so you don't scrape them. But overall, it was fun. It was definitely a pricier excursion. I mean, by the time, I believe it was $94 through Disney. So by the time I paid for the 2 of us and did tip and, your locker when you get there is about $250 to be on the water for about an hour. I'm happy we did it. We had a great time. We had a great host. He was absolutely hilarious where he just kept us entertained the whole time as we were floating down the river. So it was at, I believe it's called the Good Hope Estate, and you got to use all the facilities there afterwards. So they had food and a bar and a huge pool that perfect for kids, water slides, everything. And your excursion included as long as you wanted to stay there after you were done on your excursion. So overall, I think for us as adults, we weren't amped to go play in the pool with a bunch of kids. But I think if you had kids, it would definitely be a great option. And I know there's more options than just the river tubing. They do just the water park that they call it that's there. So you can also just book that. But I'm glad we did it because we had done this exact sailing previously. And besides the port, there's Jamaica's not a place that I would just roam there. So I liked having a Disney booked excursion to do. I know there was a few people on our cruise that did a few things, but I liked having this all taken care of when we went to Jamaica.
And you didn't do port excursions or activities in the other ports, correct?
We got off in Cozumel and went to lunch, but that was it. So there's like within walking distance of the ports, there's some great restaurants in Cozumel. I say just ask the crew members on the ship because they'll tell you where to go eat. They're the best for recommendations.
Very cool. Well, before we wrap up the fantasy here, it sounds like you had quite a number of really cool, notable experiences. If you had to pick one highlight from this sailing, what would it be?
Prima note. It was no notes. Perfect.
Well, instead of the post-cruise blues as you are packing up on the fantasy, you actually get to be excited because you are getting off and getting on the Wish. However, the fantasy gets back on a Saturday. The Wish leaves on a Monday. So what did we do on those days in between, and how did we get to and from the port?
We went to Disney World. We were actually meeting my friends who were going to come join us on the Wish. They had spent the last few days in Disney. We did take the Disney transportation back, and I will say it wasn't the best experience this time. We got on board the coach, and it was about an hour and a half before the coach pulled out, which is crazy because it wasn't the same on the Wish.
I think I would have lost my mind a little bit. Like maybe
I was
not.
there. We had some like issues getting off the ship. The gangway was not working on deck 3, so they had to route us through deck 1. But I don't really think that was the issue because it flowed pretty well. They did a good job with, getting the traffic to go. But I will say I did email Disney about this and they did reach out to me. So they obviously were concerned about it taking that long. That's my only complaint about Disney transportation. Besides that, it worked perfect. But we did do 2 days in the parks between the 2 cruises, stayed at All Star Sports. Honestly, it was a perfect little place to rest our heads at the end of the night. So I enjoyed that little bit.
2 days pass in the parks and we are heading back to the Wish. Did we use Disney transportation yet again to get back to the port?
We did. And I actually had my best friends were staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge and we wanted to get on the transport together. So I actually did have my travel agent just book us out of Animal Kingdom Lodge. Even though we were staying at All Star Sports, we wanted to join our friends. And my mission that morning was we had to be over to Animal Kingdom Lodge by 6:45 to drop our luggage off. I don't even know if that's the right time if you're dropping it off at bell service, but I was like, I will not be late. About 6:30, we got a call from the front desk at All Star Sports who could tell we were on Disney Cruise Line and said, somebody will be up to collect your bags soon, but you still can go to Animal Kingdom Lodge to catch your transport. So they came up to our room and collected our bags at All Star. Even though we were headed to Animal Kingdom Lodge, we did go have breakfast over there that morning, but it worked out perfectly. Got to Animal Kingdom Lodge. They had my name on the sheet. They knew we were supposed to be here, and our bags still ended up in our room. So props to Disney for that one. I had planned to haul them all over to Animal Kingdom, and I didn't even need to. They were like, no, we know you're staying here, so we will come get them for you.
That is amazing.
We spend a lot of time, highlighting things that Disney and Disney service does and can do wrong. It is really cool to see something where they went out of their way to really provide that magical service that we don't always take the time to get to hear about nowadays.
For sure. Worth the $45 per person for me to leave my bags at All Star and they still go get breakfast and they still end up at my stateroom. I was very, very impressed.
So making our way back towards the port, this was your first time on the Wish, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Wish is a little bit different from all the other ships. All the other ships kind of have a similar feel, similar vibe, especially when you are embarking. What was your thoughts on embarking on the Wish the first time and entering that grand hall?
So impressed. I've seen photos, but I feel like nothing compares to when you walk in. We walked in and it just feels so modern and not nautical like every other Disney ship does. We were really impressed when we walked in though. And our port transfer was great because by the time we got there, they hadn't even started boarding. So we were in boarding group 3. So we were on the ship right away. I loved when we walked in, they had the wands out and like for the entire ceremony. And I was like, can I please have a wand as a grown adult? And they were like, of course. So we got our wands, but we were like super impressed. Our go-to every time, though, is to hit the pool the second we walk in. That is our favorite thing to do. Found our spot in the adults only area, which definitely was an adjustment of trying to find the adults only area compared to every other Disney ship that we had been on. Found our spot. And then we actually just got in line for the Aqua Mouse and rode the Aqua Mouse on repeat when we got on the ship. So it was like the perfect time. No one was there. It was a little overcast, but it didn't even matter because we were on the Wish and it was gorgeous. Every time we walked out and looked at something new, we were like, wow, this is really, really pretty.
the Imagineers, when they designed the Wish, they literally thought of every little tiny detail to have the wallpaper from the elevator have the little theming on it, to even the carpeting and the light fixtures in the hallway.
Yes.
Literally, you could just stare at every little detail on the Wish and see something new every day. And while she's not my favorite ship, she is the prettiest and she's just absolutely stunning. She really is.
I like that we're the same, because the amount of photos I have of the wallpaper in the elevator is
Oh my God.
ridiculous. It's gorgeous though.
It's so good. And also, I need those light fixtures in my house, like with the scenes. Oh my God, I just love them so much.
It was nice to step on a ship and it feels super like modern and relevant, and kind of give you the same vibe of the park of like Cinderella's castle. I felt that gave off more of that than the typical Disney ship. While I love the, old school nautical, that's timeless. This is very modern and feels like your modern day fairy tale. And I really did love it.
What kind of stateroom did we book on this? And since we're making comparisons here and talking about the Wish, what did you think of the stateroom versus your room on the Fantasy?
So we actually had an inside stateroom for this. I, again, was where am I going to cut my cost? And my friends had a veranda. So I thought if I needed to go on the veranda, I could go on the veranda. But we did a standard inside stateroom, walked in. I was actually pleasantly surprised by how big it is. I had done one inside stateroom on the Wonder. The way that this is decorated with the whites and the more airy mural on the wall just made it feel so much bigger. I feel that the one on the Wonder made it feel so much smaller with that like classical nautical colors. So even though we were in an inside stateroom and there were two of us, at no point of those 4 nights did we really feel that there wasn't enough room for anyone. It was definitely the interesting thing to have the shower and the toilet in the same room, because that is one of the drawbacks, in my opinion. And it's like getting ready. There's only one spot to really get ready. I mean, somebody can get ready at the Vanity, but overall, I would 100% book an inside stateroom again to save a little bit of money to splurge on things on board, because on such a short cruise, I didn't find myself really, really longing to sit on the veranda, because there was just so much to do that there wasn't a lot of downtime.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Other new things with the Wish, you get 3 new rotational dining rooms, all new menus. What did we think of each of these restaurants, and what were some highlight dishes for you?
I thought these restaurants absolutely blew away the Fantasy the week before. As much as I loved Enchanted Garden, I don't know if it was a change of venue, but I really just thought there was a lot going on. I also really liked that I felt, besides Arendelle, it was very much more separated, where you didn't feel like you were in a big cafeteria. So it kind of like led to a better dining experience, in my opinion. We started at Marvel, which I love Marvel. Falcon Captain America is my favorite, so I was very excited that he played a nice big role in that entire thing. We really did enjoy the food there, and we liked the fact that the menu was so vast. So you could go from like a udon vegetarian dish to the schnitzel, ironically, but there was a lot to choose from. So we essentially ordered the whole menu, and I was very impressed with everything. I think they did a really good job with that. We really enjoyed Arendelle. Our seat wasn't the best for Arendelle, so that was kind of a bit of a bummer. We really couldn't see the stage show happening, but the food made up for it. I loved the like Swedish meatball dish that they had, and they also had like a baked scallop dish that came with a puff pastry. Absolutely phenomenal. So like, I do think Arendelle could have been better for us if we had been positioned closer to being able to see things, but we still had a good time. We're there waving our napkins, having the time of our lives. We don't need to be that close. And then 1923 to me was the highlight. I thought that was a phenomenal meal. One, the restaurant is absolutely gorgeous. So you walk in and we were all just like, this is the best like dining room we've ate in. It gives me the like Palo vibes, where it's super nice, and the food was phenomenal. The pasta dish I had there was one of the best dishes I've ever had on Disney Cruise Line. We ate every single dessert. She brought them all out for us, and they were all great. So I loved 1923. I loved being able to sit next. So we were seated next to a porthole, which I just thought was nice, where we could kind of not really see anything because we had the later seating. So it was very dark outside, but you felt like you were able to see things. But overall, I think the dining there for me was a highlight that I wouldn't have been mad if I didn't do any adult dining, because I think it was such an elevated experience compared to a lot of other ships.
Yeah, 1923 is just something special. It is in my opinion, the best of the rotational dining options in the whole Disney fleet. And I think
Agreed.
Christy would probably agree with me.
Yep, you're correct. I do agree. I love the theming. I love the detail. I love that you can look in each of those little cubbies, and I suggest that people do that and see, like, they'll have the color palette that was used whenever the animation was first created or whatever for whatever character it's showing. And it was like that little detail. You can see Flynn Rider's like purse, man bag, European carry-all, whatever we want to call that. Satchel. Yeah, there you go. So like his like satchel, and then there's like a crown, and it's just, oh, it's so good. And you have a like a hot tip for how to really see everything in that restaurant, Lake.
Oh, yeah. So this really applies to almost any area on a Disney Cruise Line ship, or most cruise line ships, is they don't lock the doors. And if you wake up super early, you can pretty much walk around like anywhere on the ship. And even if people are in there, for the most part, if there's not like a meeting going on, people will just let you walk around. That's how I go and like do my ship tour videos. And a lot of times like there'll be cleaners or something in there. But yeah, you can just go and like explore those areas and check out those little details.
You know what we didn't talk about? What did you think of the food fair in Marceline Market?
That is where the Wish absolutely dominates. Overall, the barbecue was phenomenal. The cantina was also amazing. That to me, I don't even think I needed to go to rotational dining. If that had been open all evening, because they do close kind of early, I would have ate there every single night. I got to the point at the end of the cruise, which might have been the 4 nights, where I was like hacking it. I was getting my burrito from the cantina and then mixing it with the barbecue so I could have them both together, and like putting the barbecue in the burrito. That is just a step up. It's not like your standard. They do have your standard pizza and hot dogs and chicken fingers, but I think that is where the Wish really excels. Like food wise, the Wish just blew me away, because the barbecue and the cantina were so good that we even considered, like in Castaway, just getting back on to go eat there because we loved it so much.
Yeah, we've actually skipped a rotational dining dinner to go eat up there. And it's just with the addition of Donald's Cantina and the barbecue, there was just something for everyone up there for the most part. Like, it's never not going to sound good. And the food up there is all just fantastic.
I've skipped Marvel before because how many times do I have to see it? It's very good. It's very clever. I've always said that, but it gives the males in my party a night to themselves to have like man time, boy time. And then I can eat a Donald's Cantina bowl, and it's delicious.
Did we do any specialty dining on board the Wish?
We did. We did 2 specialty dinings. We did Enchante brunch, and I'd like to put that in quotations because it wasn't really brunch. And we did Palace Steakhouse dinner, again, on Pirate Night, because we didn't want the Pirate Night menu. We're all very good at avoiding that. Kicking it off with Enchante brunch, and the reason I put it on quotations is we booked brunch in the Disney app when our reservations came up, listed as $80 brunch. We wanted to try it because obviously I had just gotten off the Fantasy and we had done Remy dinner, which not exactly the same, but still very similar in the styles of what they are. My friends had done Remy dinner multiple times. So we were like, let's do brunch and something different. Never said anything to us. We get to Enchante brunch. And as we're walking in, they say to us, oh, we don't really do brunch anymore. It's lunch now. And we're all like, oh. And they were like, yeah, do you still want to dine here? And of course, we're all dressed up. We're all ready to go. We're all prepared. We said, sure, no problem. Sat down. It's the dinner menu. There's no difference. Brunch is gone. And to me, it was just a very upsetting thing because we had planned for like the $80 champagne brunch where your meal would have been $80, included a glass of champagne. Our meal ended up being $135 per person. And then they brought the champagne around, but you had to pay for it. So what was like maybe, $150, $200 breakfast brunch turned into a $400 meal. And at that time of the day, we just didn't want that. And we also had Palo that night, which wasn't originally scheduled that way, but we did have a little flip flop on our trip. So they shifted our days. So we essentially did this full 6-course meal at Enchante only to head over to Palo mere hours later. But I was just kind of disappointed. The food was good. The food was great. I can't complain about that. But I was very disappointed with the lack of communication from Disney of where we thought we were going to a brunch and it just ended up being a full course dinner, because we would have canceled it if we would have known that. We've all done Remy. wasn't what was on our plans for the day. And I was just disappointed that it was never communicated to us.
And they have an app that they force you to use for everything. It's not like you're not in it all day long. They can push out a message. They should have pushed out a message to you.
Yeah. And even like when we were on the fantasy with Remy, they had called us to ask if we wanted to switch our dinner time. Just there was no message in the room. None of us got a call. I just don't think it was handled well by them. And again, it kind of goes into my like thing of like, appreciate your food. And I just gave me that vibe. So my impression of Enchante is not good. While we had a great meal, I also felt like they tried to upsell us on everything. Everything we did was just, okay, but what if we add this? So, they took our order for the whole meal. We did get the prefix menu. And then he came out and was like, do you guys want truffles on anything? It was just seemed like an afterthought. And it just didn't give me the best vibes of like fine dining. So I was not impressed with Enchante, and I definitely would not book it on my next trip.
But you did Remy dinner and you did Enchante dinner. And besides the bait and switch, we'll go with that you didn't get brunch. How would you compare the two actual meals?
That's a good question.
Although it sounds like, and you're going to have your thoughtful answer that you're working on, but it does sound like they tried to charge you for or sell you more things. So that would be a con.
Correct. I do feel like they did try to sell us at Remy too, but it wasn't as forceful. I do prefer Remy because it has the American menu and the French menu. And so Enchante is obviously just the French menu. And I think the menu tends to be a little more exotic. For someone like my mother who grew up in like not eating a lot of different things, there was sea urchin on the menu as a course. And she tried it, which, is impressive in that for her, right? So, and she was like, it's fine. But I think it caters to a fancier palate and you have to be more willing to try different things, which I don't think is the case for Remy. Like you could go to Remy and still eat, like a steak and fish and basic things where you're not trying exotic things like sea urchin. So overall, I did think the food was really great. I did really enjoy it. I thought our service was, besides the upselling, was great. I definitely prefer Remy just because you have more of an option. And I think it caters to a larger demographic of people.
That's like really good, thoughtful feedback. So yeah, I like it.
What did we think of Palo dinner then? A little bit different on the Wish because it is Palo Steakhouse. You get an expanded menu along with all of your normal classics. What was your experience?
We absolutely loved Palo. Were we slightly kind of full by the time we got there because we had just come from Enchante? Yes, but overall, totally worth it. I do like Palo too because I think it's a great place where, again, we ordered a la carte, so we split everything at the table. We had to of course, get the angelotti. We love them. But my main goal was we had to get a steak, and we ended up getting, I believe it's the 32-ounce ribeye, and splitting it between 4 people. It was, even though we had just 8, we have some good eaters in our group. It was more than enough to like fully satisfy everybody. I love the steakhouse aspect. I think it's a good look for a Disney Cruise Line. I think like every other cruise line really has the steakhouse. So it's nice that Disney has kind of stepped up to this. Our server, Portia, was amazing. We were like, can we get a buffet of every single sauce that you have for the steak? And she was like, absolutely, of course, and brought us out every single steak sauce. It was wonderful. Just the overall experience I thought was really good. I didn't feel like pressured like I had at Enchante to, upsell everything. Even when it came to like water, they were like, do you want fancy water or the mouse's water? Like, they were kind of like very playful about things. But it really just goes into my feeling that I feel Palo wants you to love your meal. And that's exactly, we had the best time at Palo's Pirate Night. So we were all dressed up and looking ridiculous. They let you go there looking absolutely crazy. And we were not the only ones that were that way. But overall, to me, that was just the better meal. The food is so good. It's so like hearty. I just love the overall experience a lot more. I thought our server was phenomenal. She was so great. So it was definitely a nice like cap of, we didn't have the best experience at brunch, but we had a wonderful experience at dinner.
So what kind of activities did we do aboard the Wish to fill your days?
We did a lot of adult lounging by the pool. I don't know if it was specifically our cruise, but that area was never busy for us. It was pretty empty the whole time. So I don't know if that was like specific to our cruise, but we spent a lot of time there. Of course, I had hit the baby races because that's my favorite thing on Disney Cruise Line. The Jack Jack's baby diaper dash is my favorite thing on Disney Cruise Line, and I will attend it every time. And then I also we had briefly talked about it on the Fantasy. I did the World of Old Fashioned again, but here, very different in the Barbary, which I thought was really cool. It's like their speakeasy that it was my friend's birthday and I got him a pedicure for his birthday. So he got to go there, have a nice cocktail when he was there. And then that night we went back and had like, I would call it a speakeasy, but it's just a wall of whiskey. So I don't know how underground it is. But we went back there. To grab a drink, there was no one there. It was lovely. But I did do the World of Old Fashioned there on night one. I loved it because it was a small class. It was very similar to the one on the Fantasy as far as like whiskey styles in every drink. However, Disney lets them be creative with the other ingredients they want to put in it, which I thought was really unique. So it was different, but it was very similar. So like the whiskeys were pretty much the same, or at least the styles of whiskey, but the tasting itself was completely different because it's up to the person hosting it on what they want to add to it. So I thought that was interesting, and I'm happy I did it on both because it was very different experiences.
And did you do any other tastings on the Wish?
I didn't. That's all I did on the Wish. I had tried to do the World of Gin as well because that's a newer one as well. However, that was in between Enchante and Palo, and I was like, I cannot do this. The way that it got rearranged, I was like, I can't do this. No, thank you. Too much.
And did we see any of the shows aboard the Wish?
We did. My favorite, Seize the Adventure. Is that what it's called?
Yes, it's my favorite
my new
too.
Favorite. It's so good.
So good.
The combination of how they just like mash up all the characters is so flawless. And also the show's about 30 minutes. So I think it's the perfect amount where you don't kind of get bored with what's happening or the storyline's not dragging along. It just flows so well. That easily was my favorite show. I was like, again, do we skip dinner and come here? Because I would watch that again in a heartbeat. I love that. And I can't wait to go back on the Wish and see it again.
I have been on the Wish a few times, and maybe 4 times now, and I have seen that show every single time I have been on the Wish. I just love it. I will be going on the Wish again in May, and I will be seeing Seize the Adventure again because it's so good. It's so good.
It is easily like the best of the Disney variety theater shows that they do. It's quick, it's very palatable, and there's a really good variety of characters in it.
It's my top 3 though of shows in general. Disney Cruise Line of like all productions, but yes, definitely the best of the variety shows.
Yeah. And like with the Fantasy, we skipped Believe. I would not skip this next time I got on the Wish. That was one that I was like, it's a longer show. You got to get through a lot of storyline. There's some great parts to it, but yeah, this was, to me, I was like, I did not expect to love it as much as I loved it. At the end, I was like, round of applause, standing ovation. I love this so much. And all the cast was so good, like so good. I had a friend that had worked on the Wish, and that was her biggest tip for me because I said, what should I do on the Wish? And she was like, do not skip entertainment because that is totally the focus on the Wish. And she was so right. And I'm so happy that like we did all the shows and we did the deck parties, just so different on the Wish compared to anything else.
So the Pirate Parlay, did you go to that?
Oh my gosh, the best pirate party I've ever been to. That was a concert. I have never loved anything more.
No, it's so good. Like, yeah. Also, the only time I ever go to a pirate show is a pirate party is the Pirate Parlay on the Wish.
Yeah, they're rocking, and they are very serious about rocking. I was just very impressed with entertainment on it. I think it's such a step up, even though I absolutely loved everything on the Fantasy. This was just next level. It was crazy.
Did you also go to see The Little Mermaid?
I did see The Little Mermaid. I really did enjoy it. I thought it started off a little bit slow, where for the first first 15 minutes, they really don't do anything from The Little Mermaid we're all so familiar with. But then it kind of found its groove. And then for me, Ursula just absolutely blew it out of the water. Like, she was so good that I was so mesmerized by her the rest of the night that was my focus. But I really did love The Little Mermaid. It started a little slow, but once I got into it, I was like, this is so great.
And did you re-see Aladdin again?
I didn't. I did skip it to go hit up and again, create more content. But I was told it was essentially the same thing with a little bit of different show effects. So we had just seen it. My friends did go and see it and said it was absolutely phenomenal. So they really did enjoy it as well.
All right. Well, I would like to turn it back to the Wish itself here a little bit of a different layout, and you seem to be a fan of the adult spaces on board. What did you think with this different layout of the adult lounges on board, and what was your favorite of them?
Yeah, I was definitely apprehensive going on the Wish because I heard everybody's feedback of even little things of not having the central elevators. And I found none of that to be the problem. I even enjoyed the adult area by the pool. I actually really, it's kind of weird that it has a dead end, but at the same time, I didn't mind it. But my biggest problem and my biggest thing that I didn't enjoy was how spread out all the adult like lounges are. So when you wanted to hang out at night, you were kind of just in the chaos of everything, like the bayou, for example. I don't even think that's a lounge. That's just like the kid hangout, and which is fine. I like thought it wouldn't be that way. I did not like how spread out they were. However, Nightingales was our favorite. We spent some good time in Nightingales listening to the piano. That was like the only feedback I had for the Wish is I just wish the adult areas weren't so spread out. I really like the like Europa section of everything being close together, and you can kind of hit everything right there and it feels adulty. But on this ship, it doesn't, just because everyone's everywhere. And like the Star Wars bar, I loved it. But at the same time, I'm sitting at the bar with like a 4-year-old next to me. And I was like, I'm drinking at 2 PM and I feel very awkward right now. That was my only feedback is I just wish they actually had a good adult area on that ship because it didn't exist when it came to lounges. It was just so spread out.
All right. Well, one thing that we did not talk about from your first sailing, but is included in both of these sailings is your stops at Castaway. What do you think of Castaway, and how did you spend your time on the island?
I love Castaway. My next cruise I have booked is only Disney Private Islands, and it's very intentional. The overall vibe when you get there is so wonderful. You skip the pressure, and I think with this cruise, we stopped in Nassau, and it's not the most enjoyable port to get off in. You're very much bombarded when you're off there, which I did not enjoy. So my time in Nassau was cut short. Like we spent maybe 45 minutes off the ship. My difference is when you go to Disney's Private Island, there's none of that pressure. It's just go relax and have a good time at the beach, which is really what I want when I'm on a vacation. So both times the weather was wonderful at Castaway, like perfect. Last time I went previously on a cruises, it had rained. So this was such a different and nice change. Spent a lot of time at the family area, which was kind of unexpected. However, the beach at the family area this time of year, I think it had been really stormy, was a lot more pristine than the beach in the adult area. That was full of seaweed. So
there's been a lot of seaweed around that beach right now.
Yeah, it was one we like stayed there, but it definitely had, the good seaweed smell, which is fine. And it was kind of nice because it was so empty because I think everybody was over at the family beach. So we kind of like hop back and forth between the two of them. But we definitely preferred getting in the water over at the family beach where we got off first thing, went, at all ashore. And there was no one there for the first 30 to 40 minutes. We just pretty much had the water to ourselves and it was wonderful. And then that's when we hopped over to the adult beach when it started to get pretty crowded. And by that time, we just wanted to lay and have a good time. So overall, I love Castaway. I feel we did rent bikes the first time on the Fantasy. That was great. We had a nice little bike ride around the island. Got to go out to the Lookout Tower. I highly suggest biking because you get to see so much more of the island that if you just take the tram, you don't see.
Yeah, we love renting the bikes and just strolling through Castaway. It is me and Katie's like favorite thing to do on the island. What did you think of Cookies?
I loved it. I mean, I feel I prefer going to the adult area because I do like to get myself my ribeye steak that you can't get in the kids section or the family section. So I think it's a good barbecue. I'm never mad at it. I look forward to it when it opens. So I think overall the quality is great. The people are so nice. You can't go wrong. Plus it's like unlimited soft serve. So I'm never mad.
Are you team walk your luggage off at the end of the cruise, or do you go to your last breakfast, or do you skip it? Do you eat at Cabana/Marceline? Like, how do you do your last morning on a cruise?
I'm team. I have no idea what I'm doing every time because it's different. So previous cruises, I have walked my luggage off. On the Fantasy, we did go to our final breakfast and dined in the dining room and had a good time. And then on the Wish, our plan was to dine in the dining room. We had sent our luggage out the night before. And then we realized we were all very much ready and breakfast wasn't until a little bit later. So we ended up just going to Marceline Market. So I'm team. I have no idea. I like all, depending on, it's situational for me. Like when we had gotten off the Wish cruise, we wanted to hit the parks before our flight at 8 p.m. So the quicker we could get off the ship meant the quicker we were in the park. So we were like, all right. And by the time we got off from having breakfast at Marceline Market, our luggage was there. Like all tags had been called at that point. It definitely got us off earlier, but I don't feel like I have a preference because I've done them all and they've all worked for those situations.
Was your transfer back to the parks a little bit quicker this time?
It was flawless. Got on
Perfect.
within 6 minutes. We were off and back to the parks, and we were in Animal Kingdom by like maybe 10 a.m.
So wrapping up here, I have just a couple last questions for you. First off, did you have any notable cast interactions?
Yes. One, I mentioned her, Portia, over at Palace Steakhouse on the Wish, was just a phenomenal server. She was so great. Absolutely loved her. She just made us feel like family. She was getting other servers involved, and like it was beyond lovely. And then I also had Christopher on the Fantasy, I had talked to him, and he said he was part of the opening team on the Fantasy. But the day that we were in Cozumel, we weren't off early because we didn't have an excursion. And I had gone to get coffee from him. And he was like, why aren't you off the ship right now? You need to go eat. And I had a restaurant that I had planned on going to, but he suggested to go to Chosa de Cozumel. And that's where we went. It was wonderful. And then that night, he also did my old fashioned tasting. And he was so lovely, but he planned out my whole day for me. So 10 out of 10 for him because he planned my whole day in Cozumel. It was a great cast interaction as well. But I just feel like there were so many that's why I love Disney Cruise Line is the cast, the crew members there are just next level. Everybody gives you such a great experience. And we had the best time with people. And they're so, I like traveling with my mom because she's older, and the way that they treat her, and they're like, mama, they treat her so well that I think it's what also keeps me going back is just the sense of my mom really feeling like they just make her feel so special. And I love that. Not that they don't make me, but give my mother all the attention. I'm fine with it. And she absolutely loved it. So she had her favorite cast as well. So
very cool. Well, what is next for you?
Next cruise. We're in the process of booking the next ones. I have a few trips to Disney coming up. Of course, I'm always looking forward to my next cruise. The next one I have booked is next February, where I'm doing Castaway and Lighthouse. So I'm very excited for that one. I'm excited to see Lighthouse Point. I think we've gotten a lot more details about that soon, like a lot of sneak previews. And I'm very excited. And then hopefully, I actually think we might do a transatlantic. That is what is on the schedule for us right now. So gotta fully pull the trigger, but a group event on that. So a lot of sea days, and we're kind of looking forward to that.
Those both sound amazing, and we definitely hope you would consider coming back to talk about those after those sailings.
Of course.
Bethany, thank you so much for coming on. Where can our guests find you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love chatting with you guys, but I am Bethany Vinton, Vinton, everywhere on social media. So you can find me there. I'm posting all things Disney food. I'm in the middle of recapping all of my cruise things. So if you're looking for videos of anything we talked about, they're coming your way.
Oh, and you have a dining podcast as well.
I have a dining podcast called The Main Street Dish, where we just dish on Disney food. And that's who we'll be doing the transatlantic with. So
nice.
All the food.
Cool. Well, Bethany, thank you again so much for coming on. That is going to do it for this episode of the DCL podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, it's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Bethany for coming on and sharing her experiences on both the Disney Fantasy and the Disney Wish. Once again, you can follow her at Bethany Vinton on all platforms and her podcast, The Main Street Dish Podcast, for all things Disney food. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would also like to thank our Patreons who make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show and join our community by visiting patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you are boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.